As a child of the 90s, I grew up on The Simpsons. Now, I'm not going to talk about the whole declining quality of the show, because that's completely irrelevant for this review. So, as you can imagine, with the insane popularity, a cubic buttload of games have been released for it. My two favorites being the Simpsons game, released in 2007, and Simpsons Hit and Run, released in 2003. But the one I'm about to review was actually the first game released that was based on the show, and it was released on the NES and multiple home computers, along with the Sega Genesis. And it makes one of the biggest fundamental mistakes when you're making a side-scrolling platformer. But I will get into that. This is The Simpsons Bart vs. the Space Mutants.
Bart vs. the Space Mutants was released in 1991 for the Nintendo Entertainment System, Sega Master System, Atari ST, Amiga, ZX Spectrum, Commodore 64, and Amstrad CPC, with a 1992 release on the Sega Genesis/Mega Drive and Sega Game Gear. It's your basic side-scrolling platformer where you play as the 10-year-old troublemaker himself, who has to foil an alien invasion by keeping the aliens, not King and Kodos, sadly, from finishing this ultimate weapon by grabbing up all the type of item, hats, purple-colored objects. Yeah, it's a pretty weak story. The theme here seems to be that they relied way too much on the license as opposed to making a solid game. Story problems aside, this game is hard. Really fucking hard. Partly due to the really clunky controls. Play for 5 minutes, you'll see exactly what I mean. So the aliens disguise themselves as humans, and the only way to expose them is with the X-ray glasses. You switch your items with select and use them with start. You have to select the pause option to pause the game. It defies all platforming logic. In the first level, you have to use spray paint to spray paint objects with B. A is jump. Well, at least I got that right. But you hold A to run. And before you can run, you jump. Oh, and when you get to the mall, particularly the Insta-Death Cement, you have to hit both A and B to super jump.
It's time to start dropping some F-bombs! Fuck! 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 Fuck!
Oh, it gets worse. You have to be precise with your jumping. Oh, and after you super jump on your landing, you can slide like you're on ice. When the game's difficulty is due to how unbelievably fucked the controls are, there are problems. Serious problems. Okay, so now that I've ranted on the Justin Bieber of video game controls, so Bart is the only one who knows of the invasion. So he uses X-ray glasses to expose the possessed humans, then he jumps on their heads to grab some kind of alien coin, which adds a letter to the bottom left of the screen. So each level has a member of the Simpson family that will aid you in your boss battle at the end, if you spell out their name. At the end of each stage there is a boss, who only appears after you finish the goal. So basically, if you miss one item, you're gonna have to go back and try and find it. Yeah, backtracking. Fun. If this ultimate weapon thingy can switch what type of item it needs, then couldn't they switch on the grass or some shit? God, I love plot holes. Getting some of the goals can be pretty damn fun in all honesty. Like in the first stage, covering up the object, spray painting it, using a wrench to open a fire hydrant to blast at an awning. And my favorite, using a coin to prank call Moe just to spray paint him. Oh, how I miss those prank calls from the early seasons. Alcoholic, IP freely, Seymour Butts, and the guy who was actually there, huge ass. Some of the bosses are characters from the show, like the Babysitter Bandit, who I believe only made one appearance in an episode, the frequent bully Nelson Muntz, and of course, the former sidekick to Krusty the Clown, played by Kelsey Grammer. I love how they took a plot from the show for his boss fight. From Krusty Gets Framed. Yeah, Bob's giant feet are his undoing. Glad they paid attention to the show. Which is good, but as I have said before, the license alone won't make a great game. You have to have some kind of effort. Look at the Simpsons game that was released, let's say about 6 years ago? Yeah, about 2007. The story was amazing. The platforming was solid. It was a competent, well-done game. Oh, the real kicker with this game?
Spoiler alert!
No final boss. Although the Simpson family does help you out on the stage, whether it's Marge or Lisa giving you a code for a door, Maggie holding onto the rods, or Homer fucking everything up on screen because of a donut. The level design isn't bad, but some of the jumps you have to make are pretty ridiculous. Some of the platforms blend into the background, are small as fuck, and with the very clunky jumping, you are going to fall into a pit more often than not, with absolutely no damn continues. You are going to play that first stage a lot before you even get to the ending. Well, just for a bullshit bonus, let's take a look at the Sega Genesis version. Looks a lot better than the NES version. Doi. But the controller layout is different. 3 face buttons and start. Okay, let's see how they handle this. Okay, what's this? You use start to pause the game? And you switch items in the pause menu? Seriously, control-wise, this is much more competent. Okay, if you're used to the NES game, you're going to have to slightly adjust to the differences. If you haven't played the NES version, jumping and the overall control of the game is a little different, but if you grew up with this version, no big whoop. At least I noticed some. But this game has a serious case of two-gear diarrhea. Well, in the section with the skateboard. From slow as ass to fast as shit quicker than you could say,
We're here.
the game is pretty much the same level-wise with all the jump fuckness from the NES version. The super jump, the jump before running's all still here, but the fact that you can switch arms in the pause menu is a damn relief. Because that is a pain in the ass when you want to select your X-ray glasses quickly and you have your wrench selected. Overall, Bart vs. the Space Mutants on the NES is a really bad excuse for a platformer. The Genesis version fixed one of the clunkiest problems, but all the big ones are still there. It's a prime example of bad licensed games. Thank God Laughing Joking Numbnuts didn't get a hold of it. They probably would have fucked it up even worse. There are much better platformers on the system, and better Simpsons games later on. Pegasus out.
Because that's completely irrelevant. Is the Simpsons hit and run. Hit and run, bleh. Hit and run, what the fuck's wrong with me?